Good day, everyone. Welcome to Rebels Media Podcast. Today, we are going to delve into complex world of geopolitics and human thinking process. We will use Bangladesh as a case report or case study to predict future events based on historical patterns of actions and reactions. This podcast will cover four topics: the worst case scenario for Bangladesh, why we have to think the worst case scenario in every strategy, everything we do. As a physician, when I see a patient, I always think the worst case scenario and prevent it happening. For any successful company running or any national decision making, if you can prevent the worst case scenario, your project is successful. Your nation will be thriving. There's one thing we have to do: think the worst, prevent it, take steps so that it never happens. Then you are set to go. Now, to prevent the worst case scenario, we are going to discuss strategic alternatives for Bangladesh. And given India Bangladesh relationship is in crosshair here, we'll also think on behalf of India, India's defense strategy, and how they are going to attack us. We are going to predict that. And based on this future projection, we are going to develop a strategy to save the freedom of Bangladesh. I am pretty sure our respected Professor Yunus and his experienced advisors has better idea than what I'm going to present today. But it will be absolute regret if we miss the opportunity and something is missed. After 15 brutal years of occupation, I will call it Indian occupation, when personally I couldn't visit my parents when they are dying, I felt compelled to record this podcast to protect Bangladeshi freedom. As I have recorded another podcast stating human thinking process and pattern recognition. Also in this area, I have written a book. People and culture. There is a pattern in decision making. People from same culture thinks similarly. This predictive thinking, using this predictive thinking, we can paint a picture of future. Painting that future, we will try to prevent the worst case scenario. Let's discuss here pattern of Indian behavior towards its neighbors over last 50 years. And analyze foreign policy goals of India. Over last 50 years, what happened? Sikkim happened in 1975. India annexed Sikkim after a referendum. What happened in Nepal? India has exerted significant influence over Nepal's political affairs. Recently, there is an opposition leader got elected, but India pretty much controls Nepal. What happened in Bhutan? India maintained control over Bhutan's foreign policy, defense, and ensuring Bhutan remains a strategic buffer. What happened in Sri Lanka? Indian peacekeeping force intervention and diplomatic initiative it took to influence India's internal conflicts, particularly during civil war. If you look at Sikkim, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, exact same thing happened in Bangladesh for last 15 years under Hasina government. But the experiment failed. India looking Bangladesh right now as a failed experiment because they didn't took over Bangladesh sovereignty by pushing Indian army. They did this in Sikkim, Nepal, Bhutan, and Sri Lanka. Now look at Pakistan is the only country where India could not influence its politics, couldn't install a occupation government. Why? Why India failed to exert any influence over Pakistan? We have to dive deep into this. That's because Pakistan has nuclear weapon, nothing else. Now, we want to discuss worldwide trends of aggression with religious extremists or right-wing leaders when right-wing leaders are in power. India was a okay neighbor until 15 years ago when Congress was in power. They did not try to install a occupation style government in Bangladesh. It started happening when right-wing religious extremists took over power in India. This is not a surprise move. That's what happens worldwide. Look at one more thing. How many countries in the world you find? They occupy almost every country remaining in its border. Think about it. Now, let me give you some examples of aggression under religious or right-wing leaders. Number one is Israel and occupation of Gaza. Look at what kind of government Israel has. Current government is totally supported by right-wing extremists. In Saudi Arabia and Yemen war, Saudi Arabia is always occupied by right-wing extremist government. Russia and Ukraine war. Putin is a nationalist and has religiously influenced ideology, led to the annexation of Crimea. India's Modi's government last 15 years installed a Indian occupation in Bangladesh. Example is on and on and on. Now, when you want to understand a person or a nation, you want to look at who is their best friends. There is a natural law of wealth calculation where you can calculate a person wealth by finding the average of that person's five best friends wealth. Similar, using the similar technique, India's best ally is Israel. India obtains strategic decisions or consultation from Israel. Given its close ties, India could consider Israel military technique when dealing with Bangladesh. What does Israel do? If you look at, they use the same playbook. Precision airstrike, blockade, military dominance over rebel force, right? So what are the things Israel does? Airstrikes, blockades, and military dominance. These are the three areas we have to develop our strategy. Again, I said I'm gonna elaborate it one more time. Any successful business, any successful venture, any successful project to treat a patient or to guide a nation, we have to prevent one thing, worst case scenario. If I treat a patient, treat the worst case scenario for a patient not going to die. That's the goal, right? So for a nation, losing freedom will be death sentence. So Bangladesh number one goal should be considering worst case scenario and prevent it from happening. And if India adopts Israel style tactics and deploy a military intervention, how Bangladesh going to prevail? Now, if India deploy military, do you think it's gonna deploy from all direction? No. How did the Russia deploy military in Ukraine? They choose certain area. What is the strategic location India wants the most? Number one is Chittagong. Number two is Sylhet, and then will be Dhaka. Why Chittagong? If India can take over Chittagong, they can save their unrest in Seven Sisters through the port. Second thing, what India might do is humanitarian crisis. India can install blockades and economic restriction, which could lead to widespread shortage of food, fuel, electricity, and medical supply. But fortunately, Bangladesh has Bay of Bengal, so we can bring help from outside. Third is political repression. India installed pro-Indian government using army coup. How many times so far? Multiple times since 1971. Why do you think India will not try to do it again? Let's discuss potential occupation of Bangladesh by India. Recently, India's defense minister said they asked their forces to review Ukraine-Russia conflict and then find a parallel between Bangladesh and India relations. That was very concerning. Why India will consider as if Bangladesh is a part of India, like Ukraine was part of Russia. So if India want to occupy Bangladesh, they will create some events and instability so that deploying army become a accepted outcome internationally. Remember, I have also recorded a podcast about negotiation in Western culture. In the West or in India, negotiation is based on leverage. If India has higher leverage, because it's almost a fifth largest economy of the world, rest of the Western world will stay mute. If India put all of its power to take over Bangladesh, it can exert enough leverage for every Western country to stay silent. That's how Western negotiation work. Who has the bigger leverage? In business, in financial deal, there is no moral. Goal is to win big. Please see my other lecture about negotiation and leverage. Second thing is, first is political breakdown inside Bangladesh. The rising anti-Indian sentiment can increase security risk for India. This already happened. After that, you can see that several states who belong to Seven Sisters already having some instabilities. Second is cross-border insurgencies. India always try to shoot and kill innocent people who is crossing the borders. That can raise tension between the border forces. India can try targeted occupation. They will not occupy any area, maybe Chittagong or Sylhet, citing security concerns. Or India might do surgical military operations and take control of critical infrastructure and neutralizing military resistance. Now, what do Bangladesh have right now, other than millions of people dying in the street to fight with them with bare hands? What do we have? So to prevent this worst case scenario for Bangladesh, let's discuss a little more, paint a picture where India occupying Bangladesh right now. Number one, military overmatch. Indian advanced military capacity can overwhelm Bangladesh defense. That's given. Number two, occupation of critical regions like Chittagong and Sylhet. Number three, diplomatic isolation by using fifth largest economy. That's what happened last 15 years. All Western country stayed silent despite there was rigged election last 15 years. Nobody said a word. Why do you think they will say a word again if India occupy Bangladesh? That's not how West negotiates. Again, I'm going to refer you back to the leverage section of negotiation. Whoever has the bigger leverage economically will win the negotiation. And number four is economic exploitation. India could diverse resources for Bangladesh industries. Already there are instabilities in garments industries, and their energy industry is also unstable right now. I'll skip that. Now, how Bangladesh can prevent Indian occupation? That is the most important slide of this presentation. We have to understand India. To tackle India, we need leverage. What kind of leverage? Economic leverage or military leverage? You need economic leverage to negotiate deal with Western countries. You need military leverage to deal with India. Whatever Bangladesh economy is, it is never going to be bigger than Indian economy because they have almost more than 1 billion population. Their GDP is higher. So in order to strengthen military alliance, Bangladesh can sign military cooperation treaties with US, with Pakistan, with China, and Turkey. Most importantly, what Bangladesh needs is a NATO-style security alliance. Why you think NATO created an alliance where one for all for one, and protected the Western interests globally? Just one alliance. Bangladesh needs exact NATO-style alliance in order to stay free. Remember what was happening in Europe before First and Second World War? Germany was occupying countries, like India occupying all of its neighbors right now. There is historical precedence already that aggression was stopped just forming NATO alliance. Then second is diplomatic engagement. Again, diplomacy is negotiation. India's leverage in economic negotiation is much higher because of its size of economy. Only Western nations will listen to Bangladesh until India is dead set about taking over Bangladesh freedom. So, in order to survive as a free nation, Bangladesh must upgrade national defense. How? You can upgrade in air defense, you will not match Indian air defense. You can upgrade cyber capability, it will not match Indian cyber capabilities. India already has a strong missile system, they can even deploy to the moon. Remember, only one country among all the neighbors India has, two country, India could never occupy or destabilize politically. First is Pakistan and China. Why? Because both of them has nuclear weapon. There will be another podcast showing why US will never allow nuclear proliferation in the South Asia. They will never do that. But NATO-style alliance with Pakistan is a strong possibility, or NATO-style alliance with USA because of Bangladesh's geopolitical location. I'm not sure about China. Could create a credible deterrent against Indian military superiority. Bangladesh can bring potential Indian aggression to United Nations. It does nothing. Like Gaza or Palestine. International Criminal Court, like Gaza or Palestine. Or international support. Diplomacy will not keep Bangladesh free. That diplomacy failed last 15 years because diplomacy depends on leverage. And India exert more leverage than Bangladesh because of size and economy. So in conclusion, Bangladesh must gain power to deter India from occupying it again. Based on last 50 years of history, India had occupied Bangladesh with multiple army coups. It's a matter of time until the next elected government engages into corruption and army will take over the power to hand over the freedom like they did multiple times to India. Unfortunately, even Ershad's army coup, most likely not only 9/11 army coup, also benefited Indian occupation in Bangladesh. Why India will try to occupy it again? Because the foundation of Asian style negotiation is win-lose negotiation. In civilized world, you will not find another country who kind of occupied almost every country in his border. Because mindset is not win-lose negotiation. Definitely, India will try to create political instability by citing attacks on minority or extremist activity inside Bangladesh, despite they have a right-wing religious extremist government in their country. And in their country, there is lots of constitutional, constitutionally uphold religion and discriminates based on religion in India. I do not see Bangladesh can stay as a free nation unless Bangladesh achieved a nuclear deterrent by building an alliance with Pakistan or with USA. I'm not sure why US will do that. So that one for all for one style of security alliance like NATO keeps its countries safe and free. Without such an alliance, Bangladesh will lose freedom again. Because whatever happened in 1971 or earlier, if country cannot forgive and move forward, and this is the right time to understand and remember what happened last 15 years. How India occupied and destroyed every institutes of Bangladesh using their players. Those players are still in. They will do it again. Is country ready to forgive what happened in 1971 and move forward and form a NATO-style alliance with Pakistan to obtain tactical nuclear weapon to deter India and occupy Bangladesh again? That's the question I want to ask everyone who is listening to this podcast, and please forward this podcast to Chief Advisor, Nobel Laureate, my hero, Professor Yunus, and all of his experienced advisors. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening in.